Hi, Bernard.
Hi, Subhash.
Yeah, how are you? I think you
I'm
joining after
fine.
2 days. Yeah.
Yes, fine. Hope you're fine as well.
So yeah, still actually we are discussing around the user story. So recently there was some feedback. So and I revised based on the NFT infra. So yeah, recently I was discussing those things, and I was discussing on ML side also how to drive the service assurance using the ML. So this exactly two topics I was discussing, and also having a discussion on your user story, like how NFT infra will solve the impact analysis. So those parts I was exploring.
Thanks.
Yeah, hello team.
Hey guys.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, let's give one more minute and then we'll start. Hello Tag, hello Victor. We're just waiting for one more minute.
Hi guys. Hello.
Okay, already we crossed 3 minutes from our time, and let's start today's meeting. Let me share my screen and please let me know if it's visible. I hope it's visible to everyone.
Yes, it's working for me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's just start today's meeting. So today is the 18th April, and this is our group 5 meeting. Today I have planned mainly user story for agenda item. And if Stephen is available, we'll go through the observability related updates. So let me just check Stephen is there. Okay. So as Stephen is not there, so we'll just skip the first item and directly jump on the second one, where we would like to review the user story on bandwidth assurance. And yeah, in the past week, meeting, actually we were discussing on the ML-driven approach for the service assurance. So that part is still pending for me. I'm working on it. Mostly, I'll give you the idea about how the ORNSC, one of the ORNSC project, AIML framework, handles the ML part. So that I'll try to bring it together here. And yeah, with this update, let's jump on our discussion on the user story. So I have revised this particular user story, and we were discussing in the previous meeting on the workflow, how the workflow will look, and also it is getting impacted by NF to infra, because if you divide our user story, we mainly have the two parts of it. First one, the placement of actor part. Let me open the workflow properly. Yeah, please let me know if texts are readable in this workflow.
Yeah,
It's okay
yeah,
for me anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So actually, this user story, we have broken down the problem into the two parts. The first one is the actor placement, because actor carries the business logic in order to do take the action. So earlier we were proposing to have one service assurance controller, so that will take the intent, and based on the intent, it will plan everything. It will take the context of the DU, and according to that, it will place the actor in the correct workload closer to the DU. And the second part was we observe the DU. Maybe it depend on the observability, or maybe actor will directly observe it for time being, and based on that, it will reconfigure the bandwidth of the DU. So that was the overall picture. So the first part where we are placing the actor, so that we are passing it to the NF to infra. And if you see it here, the package discovery reconciler and the package scheduler reconciler. So these are the part of the NF to infra. So this last meeting also we discussed with Vim, and try to come up with this approach, like we will deploy the NF. So that is the DU for us, and it will carry some implicit or explicit dependency. So let's say we would like to deploy the DU. So it is dependent on the RAN operator, or maybe on some kind of the multis, or different components, right? So so when we deploy the DU, along with that, those dependent components will get first installed or deployed, and then DU will get installed. So in this way, we will try to put some explicit dependency on the DU. Well, let's say first the DU get deployed, then we'll try to place our actor, and the actor would be having the DU context. So I'll take you through from all the steps, and feel free to pause me and ask the question. And also, yep.
So Subhash, I'm sorry, I should raise my hand.
Yep, no problem.
So I don't know if I'm the only one that's raised this. Okay. Yeah, I guess it was. All right. So I did have a couple questions on this, right?
Yeah.
All right. And so the first thing is, I want to try to understand. So you got rid of the service assurance controller. Now, the other question, the first question I have is, I know that you and Wim were having discussions on the general architectural patterns and flows. Is this what the resolution of those discussions came up to? And have you guys come to consensus? My first question.
Okay.
And the answer?
Yeah, Tim. So in the last meeting, if you see, I presented this particular slide, right? Let me open it. So on the 4th April, we were discussing this particular topic. This new proposal. Yeah. So yeah, here we were discussing the same flow, and then we were discussing on the how we can deploy the actor by expressing explicit dependency on the DU based on the NF to infra. So
and that's what you and
right,
and that's what you and Wim, or that group that Wim was a part of, right?
Yeah.
Agreed to. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, right.
Okay. All right. So now I can proceed. All right. Because I was kind of waiting for the pattern to evolve, right, to consensus, and then we can talk about the actual DU, right? All right. So my question would be that this actor. So I've got so the RAN operator is really, if I look at it, trying to get rid of like the specifics out of this. I want to know what type of operator this is. This is an operator that's going to control the DU. That's part of the DU deployment, control the DU deployment, right? So what its responsibility, okay?
Right.
Because yeah, so that's one piece. Now the other piece is that the DU package also has this actor. I don't know what this actor is. It looks like it's another controller, right?
Right.
It looks like it's a controller for the purposes of service assurance. It's a service assurance controller, right?
Right.
Is what that actor is. And it's a service assurance controller specifically for the DU.
Okay.
Right? Is that accurate?
Actually, I'll a little bit differ here. It's like I
Okay.
understood your question here. You would like to say that DU is getting controlled by two operators, right? I think you are going towards there, correct?
Well, I'm asking the question that
Yeah.
is that actor, because it's part of the DU package. So I'm assuming that the actor itself is very DU specific. And its
Yeah,
purpose
currently,
and its purpose in that is to provide some functions, some capabilities for the DU that it's being deployed with, right?
Right.
And so it's DU centric. It has it provides some capabilities. What are the capabilities that it provides? And it's not a generic actor, right?
Yes. It is not a generic actor.
I didn't get that from this, right? So I wasn't sure. That was the big question. And so I would suspect that RAN operator, which is a deployment operator, right, would need to know that the actor exists, right? Because it's sitting in the same workload. It's sitting in the same workload cluster, right? As the
Actually, I'll differ a little bit, Tim.
okay.
So because generally, if you see that, right, operators are generally independent. They independently work. They are loosely coupled. They need not to aware about each other, right? So here the RAN operator is only responsible for a deployment of DU, or maybe you can take maybe take scaling also. Means let's I'm just taking one example. Let's say RAN operator is responsible for its life cycle of the DU.
Okay,
But
so
here,
who's responsible? Let's just ask the question, right? Because I don't believe that that's true. It's got something's got to manage these various operators to ensure.
Yeah.
So let's just drop back to the DU, right? So I want to know. I want to know. I want to know the health of that deployment, of the DU deployment. Is it deployed? Is it healthy or ready? I guess is the term that we're coalescing on. Is it ready, right? And does ready mean that for that DU that the service assurance is in line? And if that does, which I think it would mean that for a DU, the operator the operator would say that this deployment is ready, says that the actor, the service assurance aspects of it, capabilities of that deployment of that DU package is the ready is dependent upon these two, the readiness of the DU itself and the readiness of that what you call the actor, right? Where is that status coordinated of the deployment? It should be. I'm just going to ask, where is that status that I know that those, because they might be deployed independently and they might never speak to each other, right? But someone's got to be monitoring both of those pieces to say whether that DU deployment's healthy, ready.
Right.
Use the word ready, right?
Right. So I would say, so tomorrow, if you see the actual architecture, I would say observability is going to be responsible for it, whether your deployed NFs are healthy or not, right? So it is going to continuously monitor. So that would be responsible for it. And if you try to understand actor more properly, I would say it is a kind of some add-ons. So for example, let's yeah, like for there are different service assurance needs, right? And operator only take care about the life cycle of NF. So let's say you would like to enable some kind of extra plugin, so the actor can do those jobs. So those are the carries the a specific business related logic, so that you can work along with your NF. So whether it's a DU or let's say take example of UPF. So UPF might need a different kind of logic to manage your scaling or load balancing. So those kind of actor will carry a different kind of logic. So the benefit of what we will get based on our need, we can place those kind of logic. They might possible that the actor coordinate along with the RAN operator to fulfill your requirement. So I'm visualizing. Yeah.
So then it's the so who's observing the deployment? Is that
Mainly
the package? Well, that's an observability. That's a framework. That gets
observability.
you KPIs.
Yeah.
I'm talking about statuses. I want to make sure that everything's ready, right? And so,
team. If I understand correctly, observability is also going to be responsible for health check. So whether your deployment is healthy or not. That I understood from
yeah, but I've
different
got to correlate the RAN operator with the actor for that DU package to say whether that DU deployment is ready, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I'm asking what entity does that correlation? Can't be observability. Observability doesn't know. He just observes and spews data. And the only reason I'm asking is because you didn't have the RAN operator do the deployment. That would have been the easy. That would have been the easy answer. Now you split them, and I'm said, okay, that's fine. But some entities got to tell me the deployment is healthy.
Yes. I'm also believing that observability is that entity which will track it.
But, sorry, Subhash, I wonder is that because I don't think observability makes decisions; it just exposes telemetry.
Exactly.
Yes. I'm not saying that it is taking the decision. I'm just saying it is going to monitor it, and we need to interpret the meaning from it. So same thing I'm trying to do it here.
Who's we? This is PRB. This is an application layer. That's PRB says I got capacity. I'm not worried about that. I'm just saying the fact that you said the package scheduler is going to make separate deployment, and that the RAN that's right. And the RAN operator, and what you said was that the RAN operator and the actor will have no knowledge of each other.
Right.
Okay.
You see.
I got it. Given those constraints, right? That the RAN operator and the actor do not have knowledge of each other, but they all come from the same deployment, the DU package. What entity is responsible for reporting the consolidated health of the DU? It's not the RAN operator. He doesn't have knowledge of the actor. It's not the actor. He doesn't have knowledge of the RAN operator. It can't be the observability framework because he just gives data. Help me understand.
Maybe, Tim, if I've understood, say, Subhash, the actor crashes. If I pick a very crude example, the actor crashes. Who's going to be checking for that? If I've understood what you're talking about, Tim, correctly, it's, the actor's gone. Who's going to check and report that?
And know that now the DU package is now not healthy.
Yeah, it's incomplete. There's a function missing.
Jack, maybe I'll try to bring the analogy. Like let's say when RAN operator crashes, like then who will report it? That's how we will track it.
Yeah, same difference, right? So how is that done? Or it didn't get deployed correctly, right? What entities are responsible for doing that?
I think the Kubernetes itself in the workload cluster will be responsible. He'll try to or
So,
yeah.
all right. So you're relying on some some um, some entity in the management cluster that understands the package dependencies for that DU package to report that status.
Actually, if I understand correctly, Tim, maybe try to try to correct me if I'm wrong. I understand management cluster is responsible for generating the configuration, right? It generates that configuration, passes to the workload cluster.
Yeah.
In the workload cluster, the Kubernetes is there. So, so Kubernetes controllers are responsible for let's say it is crashed. They are responsible for bringing it up or even
All right.
trying it.
All right.
So
I'll talk with.
yeah.
I'll talk with. So I know what my question is, but I don't think I'm not sure that you get if you have the answer because it might not be in this space, right? So I'm going to go ask. I'm going to ask Sagar because he's got the DU package, right? So I'm going to ask him what entity tells me whether it's DU deployment, which includes the actor and the operator, right? That those are healthy. Those deployments are healthy, right?
Okay.
Those entities are healthy. I'm not worried about the what you have down here where you have the observability, right? I was just worried about the fact that you're now deploying two separate resources, right? Or two separate workloads, management workloads that's supposed to make sure that everything that the DU is healthy, monitoring the DU and reporting. And so them themselves, I would have expected yeah, that's fine. I'll ask them. There might very well be an entity they already got handled of it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And yeah, here I just answered your query also. I'm just assuming actor is one another operator. It is equivalent to operator, like how the life cycle of this run operator is going to be managed. Something similar to that we will have for the actor. Okay. So the deployment will be also the something similar to run operator.
So you might want to look at instead of calling it actor, right?
Mhm.
You might want to. So what is this thing supposed to do? It's the service. What is that actor? What is his role?
Okay, so the operator, when we say operator, it works along with the Kubernetes reconciliation loop. But a actor, it will work along with the observability to take the action, maybe related to infra or maybe related to NF. Like for example, currently it is taking action on.
So it's a service assurance actor, right? It's the
Yeah,
service
yeah,
assurance actor.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine. And it's for the DU, right?
Correct. Yes.
So yeah. So if I would have stereotyped that, I would have said it was service assurance actor
Yeah.
for the DU, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
operator.
really probably for the DU PRB, right? Because I could just say DU. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's one thing or 20. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah, if you try to understand more properly, so operator actually work on the Kubernetes closed loop, and actor is working on some higher level closed loop. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Subhash, would it make sense to just update also this term of actor to service assurance actor so that these types of discussions will later on not reoccur again?
Yeah, of course. That is a good suggestion actually,
That
Bernard. So,
that's
yeah.
why I was recommending stereotyping them, right? If you stereotype them with those little brackets, what I'm saying, of what its role it's playing, it's just for the DU. So.
Actually, just do history. Okay. Maybe I think in this document I captured everything. Okay. Here. So yeah, here I think I have captured some of the ideas. No, not here. Sorry. Some diagram I had actually, so that contained the details. Reconfiguration or I guess this is the one slide. Yeah, Samesh, actually, I had captured the definition of actor, but later it was like it was more detailed information. So with that comment, actually, I removed it here. So yeah, sure. I'll add those nomenclature also, as you suggested. Yeah,
Yeah, because you're going to want to use this similar pattern, I would assume, because you showed me on the other one, right? You know, you would
Yeah.
want to use a similar pattern, but all you're doing is specializing it to a DU. What you're doing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Sure. I'll define it. So so Tim, shall we go over your comments, or shall we go over this flow one so that everyone could understand?
Yeah, go over
the
flow. I think you take care of my comments, but go over the flow.
Okay, sure.
Subhash, can I just ask one quick question about the packaging?
Yeah, of course, sure.
You mentioned a few times the actor is packaged with the DU, but does that mean we expect DU vendors to package up this actor? And will every vendor do that? Are we building a dependency that's realistic?
Yeah. Currently, Activer is very specific to DU. So OA is providing this DU. So we understand their documentation, and based on that, we are trying to define our actor. So I agree with you. It's like it is more closer to the NF vendor, so they should provide some kind of logic for the actor if it's very specific to their NF. Otherwise, we could come up with a generic actor so that it can cater to different NFs. So if you see my previous documentation in this whole process, I try to define the term actor, and actor again I divided in two parts. One is the generic actor, and another is specialized. So
no,
we are
Subhash,
in,
apologies. I don't want to derail your whole meeting. You probably had a topic. We don't need to get into the details now. I just wonder if that's not a standardized thing in ORAN or 3GPP, what this actor is. I don't know if every vendor is going to build it the same way, have the same APIs and so on. Not the most urgent comment for today, but it's just something to keep in mind. I wonder, should the actors be bundled with Nefio rather than bundled with the DU? But maybe we'll come back to it.
Yeah, this I would say it's like everyone's to think on this particular question, because as a first POC, I would like to do this actor part so that we should have the proof of concept that actor could do enough configuration. And yeah, it is open. Yes, how we visualize that interface. Does it be should it be centralized or generic, or how exactly we would like to handle?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
We can. I'm happy to park the comment. I appreciate you have other topics to cover today. I was just curious, so we can move on.
Yeah, thank you, Tag, for thinking around these lines also. So yeah, I'll just go through the flow, Mr. What exactly we think. Like first end user will come, he'll ask to deploy the DU package, and he will create the package variant. And if you have followed the NF infra presentation, so there will be a package discovery and package scheduler. So job of package discovery is to identify the dependency. So it is a very specific to NF infra. So it is currently it should be a black box for this particular group. So like NF infra is going to offer those kind of services. So as just in a high level, we understand in this way, it will identify the dependency, and the package scheduler is going to install the dependency. So from step number 1 to 5, we can assume that DU is getting deployed, and along with that, all the dependency will get deployed. For example, like RAN operator, or let's say it depends on some kind of multiples, so it will install it. So everything is get deployed. So that's why step number 1 to 5, let's assume that NF infra is doing it. And the step number 6, where we come, where we need to express the SA related requirement as a explicit dependency. So that we need to actually identify how we could express in terms of NF to infra dependency. So that we'll see. So just here we can assume that after the DU deployment, we are going to deploy the actor. So when the deployment of actor starts, we need to initialize it with the DU context, like how we need to observe the DU. What should be the interval, like for example, interval or or what should be the actor we need to deploy, which package we need to deploy. So those things will come here. Okay. So once the actor is get deployed, we have the again two possibilities. Either within R3 observability is ready to observe the NF. Okay. If it is not ready, so actor has to take the job of observing the DU. So let's assume that observability is there. So at that time, what will happen? The actor will get initialized, and during the initialization, it has the DU context. So it will request to the observability that he would like to get this particular KPI from the DU for this kind of service assurance use case. So it will express the observability requirement, and observability will again start collecting the KPI parameter from the DU. So currently the OAI DU, it exposes the TCP, telnet interface. Over that, we can collect PRB utilization, or more specifically, load we can collect it, and load is again in the terms of 0 to 100. So generally, the PRB utilization we track in a downlink and uplink, and in these two direction we generally compute it or observe it. But in OAI, there's a restriction that this is entirely computed and given in terms of the load. So that load goes from 0 to 100. Okay. So it will pass it to actor. Let's say we expressed our requirement such a way that whenever the load goes beyond the 80%, inform to the actor. So it will provide load information to actor. So you can just compare it with the PRB utilization. So it informs to the actor, and actor what will do as a step number 6. If it goes beyond the threshold, it will immediately reconfigure the DU over the telnet interface. Okay. And let's assume that observability is not ready. So we need to actually take the load of observability, and we need to collect those KPI parameter from the DU. And actually, in the background, we are doing one POC so that we can collect the load related KPI parameter from the DU. So actually, this one we are able to do in a crude way, and yeah, POC we are building this for this particular step. Okay. And also once the PRB means we got the load related information, it is beyond the threshold, we will just reconfigure the bandwidth. So this particular part we are doing the POC, and we are working along. We are getting for our queries. We are in a contact with the Sagar. He's from the OEI. So this particular piece we are doing it. Okay. And yeah, this is the detail about it. And till here, any question? Do you see any question? Actually, our important role we have in step number 6 to 8 actually. Yeah. Any question? Tag or Tim or Bernard? Any question?
No,
No,
I mean that hasn't changed, right? So
yeah, that hasn't changed. Only the part, the first part where we would like to place the actor, so that is changed. Okay. And
just to sort of make it very clear, we are expecting that the way the reconfiguration happens doesn't interfere with the way the RAN operator manages the life cycle of the DU. That means sort of if there's some kind of life cycle changes and the RAN operator determines that there needs to be a reconfiguration, the actor would not sort of disrupt this type of interaction, since the service assurance
yes.
actor would come from the same vendor.
Yes. Miss, I have checked this RAN related operator. So what I understood currently, it takes only the deployment related it participates only in the deployment related activities. So let's say if we got a NF deployment for DU, so it just go and deploy it there. It does not take care about this particular piece.
Yeah, but because the reason why I'm saying that is because either sort of RAN operator is sort of a mini orchestrator, or sort of typically I would regard the RAN operator to do the full lifecycle management of a DU over the time. That means not only the initial installation, but potentially also take care of sort of if something goes down or needs to be restarted or whatever, that it sort of takes care of those. And I was just wondering sort of if there's some guidelines to be considered regarding the split of responsibilities between these basic lifecycle management operations and those which would relate to those service assurance related activities.
I agree with you, Bernard. Yeah. So this part also we need to take agreement, like this particular piece we are doing it. So, but yeah, I also would like to take your thoughts. For example, let's say we deploy any pod in the Kubernetes, right? So there are different controllers are getting involved. For example, there's a deployment controller, or what do you call it? There are different controllers actually get involved, right? Different, I mean, like pod control. I think there's a list form is a pod controller which tracks it, and certain level of replication controller. So those different controllers actually work together to manage the life cycle, right? So they also get some kind of agreement, right? So I think so something similar analogy we can bring it here, like what part actor will do, what part RAN operator will do.
Okay.
Yeah, just I wanted to take your thoughts also there, like how different operators work together on particular deployment. So same analogy we can bring for RAN operator and actor also, I feel. What do you say? But I hope my query is clear. Or
yeah, the thing is sort of we have typically a lot of automation tools around the actual component being the DU. Yeah, you see we've got observability, RAN operator, actor, etc. And we need to make sure that they are sort of working sort of well aligned together. And therefore, sort of, I wanted to sort of, if we're introducing those types of elements and functional components, that we have a clear scoping in mind, talk about how would, for instance, this reconfiguration in step 8 work, what kind of interfaces are being used, because configuration could be handled by, let's say, updating config maps, making use of netconf, whatever type of mechanisms could be thought of here. And I was just sort of wondering if we need to come up with sort of some kind of recommendations, because otherwise there will be a wild west of, I can think of AI actors or service assurance actors coming on top, which are then doing reinforcement learning. And then suddenly you've got the whole range of sort of interfering automation mechanisms, which might not lead to the desired results.
Yeah. Actually, we need to solve the coordination problem, right? We need to specifically say that what role actually actor will do, what RAN operator will do. I feel the RAN operator will do the generic jobs, and actor should do some kind of specific jobs, more focused on the service assurance. I think.
But this is not as a guideline too crisp. So there should be some kind of notion of what that means.
Tim, I would like to take your thoughts also here. Tim, are you there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure, because it's, honestly, I don't, what you're asking is, what is the coordinating entity, right? I thought that coordinating entity was the RAN operator, right? He's the deployment operator for that DU. So it takes a DU package and it would be responsible for understanding the deployment of the DU, right? But that's not what we're doing now. We broke those up, and you said the RAN operator and the actor don't have knowledge of each other. So there's
Yes.
some other coordinating actor that's out there that has to understand that DU package with all its dependencies and then assert whether that DU package is healthy or not. The DU in that
Yeah,
package, or
but
whether that DU package or deployment is healthy or not.
So Tim,
Maybe-
if I look at the diagrams, just to be very clear about that, currently in the step 8, the actor is directly interfacing with the DU. That means there's no sort of coordinating entity in between, and there's no RAN operator information in between. So if you are looking for a coordinating entity, then this line 8 should look a little bit different.
Well, so that's a little bit different though, Bernard. Maybe I didn't understand. So the line 8 says, hey, the actor, the service assurance controller, right? Upon reading some stuff out of observability, decides that it's going to do something, right? And then it does that to the DU. The DU then in itself actually will then that configuration then would have to get reconciled by that RAN operator, if that's what you're getting to.
But I don't see that. You don't see the
You
reconciliation.
just don't. Yeah, that's right. You're not seeing that in the 8 because that's a normal function, I think, of the DU that the configuration reconciliation happens by the DU RAN operator.
I'm not quite sure. So if I look at Kubernetes, if you just imagine that would be a pod or so on, and if you're directly influencing the pod and trying to interface with that, the pods typically don't update their metadata in etcd, and based on that trigger then the sort of update of the RAN operator. So I just wanted to point out that these mechanisms are sort of looking rather independent. And if you are looking for a coordinating approach, you either do that via convention, then I could understand this approach with number 8. If you want to do that by automation mechanisms, where, for instance, there's a filtering, a validation approach, a reconciliation approach, then you would need a couple of additional interaction patterns to support that.
Yeah, I just asked. You can make a comment on it. I just asked that question to Sagar to be clear, right? So to be sure. But go ahead.
Yeah, Bernard, actually, I discussed with the Sagar that if we configure the DU over the telnet, it doesn't restart. Configuration is directly taken by the DU, change in the bandwidth. So that directly taken by DU without restart. So that I understood.
Yeah, but you got to
what I wanted
reconcile that. You got to reconcile that change. Is what Bernard is saying.
Yeah, either by a convention where you say you are allowed to do that because I'm not, as a RAN operator, interfering anyhow. Yeah, that would be fine. But sort of if that is the case, then you need to have a couple of conventions saying, look here, sort of I'm going to do the basic setup and do the lifecycle management part. And regarding the specific configuration of what you're sort of talking about, for instance, the bandwidth, then sort of this is something which is out of the scope. But there needs to be guidelines so that we sort of, if we're talking about this approach, we can apply it to various types of workloads or the EU vendor solutions, so that they know sort of what is the role of the RAN operator, what is the role of the actor in that context, to have a clear picture of what they probably should try to implement and support.
So Bernard, so if I just wanted to get clarification. So RAN operator should be responsible for all the last end communication with the DU. Is it like everything should build on the RAN operator, and any entity, let's say actor would like to configure the DU, so it should talk to operator and the operator should do the changes in the DU. So
that would be one approach. Yeah, you could sort of say, look here, sort of, and then that would allow for a certain independence of the service assurance actor and the RAN operator, because then you could say the RAN operator is working, for instance, on a configuration basis, and you could then expose that schema and have any kind of additional suppliers or even the telcos try to sort of come up with actors which would then work on top of that. If you are directly interacting with the DU and wanting to do the reconciliation, then typically then I would expect the service assurance actors and the RAN operators to be coming from the same vendor.
I see. I see. So yeah, in that way, like the end communication to the DU always happens from the RAN operator, and the actor is just built on the top of RAN operator. So that approach design pattern you're suggesting, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Tim, I would like to ask one another question to you. So in future, would we see any service assurance related development in the RAN operator, or
Yeah, I
it's
don't
just
know.
to avoid any?
You have to ask Sagar. I don't quite know what everything the RAN operator does. Right now, it's responsible for deployment, right? So,
Right.
and it's gonna, as part of that, it'll provide its configuration and stuff like that. So, really, you're gonna have to work that out, Subash, with Sagar.
Okay. So I think I would say for timing, let's continue with step number 8, and we'll discuss is it a right would it be a correct approach if you directly talk to the RAN operator and then RAN operator talks to the DU, so that we can switch in the future also, right? So currently for this release, actually at least we can try this particular POC.
But you're pulling from B. You're pulling the stats from the DU. You already have connectivity to the DU.
Yeah.
Right. So
Again,
the
it's like
question is that's really being asked, right? Don't try to come up with a pattern without speaking to Sagar, right? But
right.
the what the question is that how are the changes being reconciled at step 8?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. And then we just need a pattern that solves it, right?
Yeah. And also I would like to clarify that 7B, that step is temporary, and later it will get converted into the 7A.
Well, that even makes it more important that you're not doing 8. And if 8's temporary, then that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But you better make sure that 7B and 8 are temporary, because you don't want, there is, to go to the point again, you want that separation of concerns, right?
Yeah. So I think this part is like either observability will do, or temporary we are just trying to achieve the POC. That's why we are taking this particular step, and that we will clearly mention that this is the particular temporary step, and observability is the correct design pattern. It's like
So
observability.
what's the goal of the POC then? What are we trying to prove in this POC? Just simply
Okay.
that you can deploy an actor, and that the act.
Yeah, actually, we are able to prove that using the actor. It's like we can. We are getting ready actually towards the service assurance. So we are able to place the actor with the help of NF infra. That is the one. And the
Okay.
second one, if observability related KPI parameters available to the actor, he can formulate the action. So
Okay.
yeah, so 2 goals we can say.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So any other question? Okay, so I'll move further. And actually, there is a documentation also around the DU KPI parameter. Let me open it. Yeah, I guess this is the one. Yeah. So if we go over the telnet, using the telnet, we can collect this particular JSON from the DU, and this contains one parameter called load. Load. Yeah. So this particular parameter actually represents the PIB utilization by combining the uplink and downlink load. And based on this particular load, we are going to take the action. So if I go back here, Yeah, so here I just wanted to represent like we collected the DU KPIs collected over the telnet, derive the PRP utilization. Actually, in the note I have mentioned that here. In the current DU implementation, a DL and a UL PRP could not be retrieved separately. Load is the parameter which is calculated internally to indicate how much bandwidth is utilized. So again, based on that, we are forming a function like based on the PRP, we are taking decision means what should be the bandwidth, and according to that, we will configure the DU bandwidth. Again, that's over the telnet. So that I think that information is also captured here. Okay, for example, write a new configuration. So that will configure the bandwidth. Okay, yeah, here it is, right? So we are able to configure the bandwidth. So this information is available. So based on that, we are going to configure it. Okay. Oh, I see. I closed. Oh, sorry, I closed particular document. Okay. Okay. So this was the overall things about the this new revision of the ODU bandwidth assurance. So any question? Okay.
Yeah, I would have just one question. So
Yes.
you are basically showing that the mechanisms which you're depicting in the sequence diagram works, and probably you will then hopefully then see that due to this reconfiguration somehow, for instance, this threshold is somehow reflected properly, whatever. Yeah. But the validation part, I believe we need to then talk about if, how would we see that was successful. And what I'm most interested in is about the generalization of that approach. And that
Okay.
means we are showing that the mechanisms are possible, but I would as a telco operator want to understand what does that mean for any kind of vendor-driven solution? What do I ask them to provide to us? How should they support that with their offerings or via their documentation or interfaces they are exposing, so that we can then say based on that we have an approach which is generic? Because I try to make a worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is we get the RAN operator and the DU from a vendor. We have to then hard code this actor because we might have the need to do some kind of service assurance optimization, but we don't have the documentation. There's every time we have got a new use case, a new thing which we need to reflect, new algorithms to consider. And then basically this whole exercise is very tedious and we don't have too much benefit out of that, and would probably rather ask the vendor to somehow integrate this type of functionality into the RAN operator. So I was just wondering if we can also think a little bit about what would that mean if we would want to generalize that approach. What steps would we need to take then in addition?
Sure, Bernard. I'll note this point, and of course we'll work on further how we can generalize this particular actor. So that definitely will work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. And we had few queries from the Tim. So Tim, shall we go on each query, or how you would like to?
No. So yeah, we can just do more. So my problem was that I was trying to understand NF, and so when we talk about NF in are we talking about the DU itself, or are we talking about the DU deployment, right? So I was trying to differentiate the actual deployment, which is what the operator will from the actual NF, right? And so I wasn't quite sure what we were talking about, because an NF, because again, when I look at some of the starter language that you had in there, you're saying, hey, we've got
Yeah.
a DU that goes across multiple clusters and all this other stuff. I go, do we actually have a DU that goes across multiple clusters? No, then maybe we ought not to say that. So if the DU is all on the same cluster, then then that multi-cluster stuff doesn't. All that stuff got me confused, right? Can you have a DU that goes across multiple clusters? Not, a deployment was meant for a particular site and cluster, right? That's what deployments are for. So I wasn't sure, and an NF could have a bunch of deployments, right? So I wasn't sure. It seems like in NEPIO, where we talk about NF, we mean a deployment of a network function, which happens to be just one deployment per network function, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first comment that I was trying to make. I was just trying to understand, the multi-cluster stuff, and so we deploy an NF via NF deployment was the second comment, right? So here we were using language, and I would just want to know, take a look at it, see if you can tighten it up. If you mean NF, you mean the DU, that's great. If you mean the deployment, let's say the NF deployment at that point, right?
Yeah.
And scroll down. And then on this other one, all it was is that I was just trying to figure out again, in your framework, do you mean the DU or the deployment? And just again, be careful with what you're saying, right?
Okay.
And then same comments all the way through. I just wanted to make sure which one you were talking about. And scroll down. And really, the NF is a workload at that point, right? Again, when I separate this, the DU is really just happens to be one workload. But in reality, how many workloads is part of that NF deployment, right? That DU deployment. There's a bunch. Well, we have the actor, for example, one, right? It's part of that DU deployment, right? It's not the DU, right? But it's part of the DU deployment. So it's workload, right? So that was the other comment.
Sorry, Tim. Here I'm missing. So how to
So
observe
here,
the NF?
so are you observing a workload? Are you observing the DU? Or are you observing the DU deployment, right? So when you say NF, what do you mean?
Yeah. Here I mean DU for current use case.
Okay, that's fine. Then I would just say how to observe the ODU should be decided by the, you know what I mean? Just be clear about what we're talking about, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So scroll down. And here I was like the same way. So as we look at it, what is the RAN operator? Is it talking about the deployment? Is it the thing that's going to be the operator for the DU deployment, right? The DU package, what is the actor? I didn't know what the actor was, right? What it meant. That the actor for this is a very specific actor for the DU, right? Yeah. That type of thing, just using the stereotypes. And that was it. That was okay. But I was just trying to make sure that we understood what we were talking about when we say this thing, because we've overused the term network function, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, actually, this part I try to keep very generic, just to express the problem statement. But with I need to correct it. I'll add
but someone reading this is, then I look at the use cases. I'm like going, I don't know how you're going to do this for multi-cluster stuff. I would assume that we'll have a use case specific for showing how we're going to do this across clusters. If you really want a cluster observation framework, right? Multi-cluster.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Or
Tim,
service assurance framework.
I try to trim it, and also I'll add the glossary so that we understand those terminology. So I'll add another appendix and try to explain all those terms. Okay. And as you mentioned that, I'll try to correct this term NF that is overused, right? So I'll try to clarify it. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I'll correct this document and I'll proceed to work group 3 for the review. Okay. Okay, so I think we had a consensus, right?
You mean going to for scoping, right?
Yeah.
All right. So for scoping, whether to proceed to scoping, do me a favor before you go into scoping, just make sure you circle around and ask that question about reconciliation with SEGA. Okay. So I think there's two outstanding questions. One is the reconciliation question, and the other is just making sure that we understand how the deployment, the health of deployment gets reported, right?
Yeah.
And just so you might not even have to do any documentation of that. That's just making sure. So those are the two action items, right? Other than that, you could ask other people if there's any objections, but I don't have any objection of going to scoping.
Okay.
And the fact that you've already validated this with WIM, right? This approach,
Yeah.
so the framework. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyone have any objection? Okay. I'll take all the comments that we discussed in this meeting, try to refine it, and yeah, action item is to discuss once again with the Sagar on these two particular aspects, and I'll proceed with the work group 3. Oh, sorry. Actually, we just crossed 1 more minute to our time limit. Sorry for that. I did not notice. And with this, any concluding remark anyone would like to make? Okay, so I'll take this silence as a no, and I would like to thank everyone for giving the time to review this document, and have a nice day, everyone. Thank you. Let's meet next week. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.